Hello and welcome to Norwood News. Today is Friday, March 16th, and I'm your host, Krista McDonald. In today's top story, once again, the talk around town is this week's weather. Monday night and most of Tuesday, another nor'easter hit Norwood, dropping an estimated 19 inches of snow around town. The extensive amount of snow caused Norwood Public Schools to close on Tuesday and Wednesday. This provided the time needed for the town employees to safely clear the snow from the streets and sidewalks. To learn about this process, our very own Jack Tolman hopped in the plow with Norwood Building and Grounds' Chris Folan.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Folan. I work for the Grounds Department and Maintenance Department at the Norwood Schools. We are just leaving the high school now, Jack Tolman and I, in NPA 1, and we're heading to the Prescott School. We do 4 schools. We do the Savage Center, the Oldham, the Callahan, and the Prescott, and our contractor does, Consider It Done is the name of our contractor. He does the other 5 schools with the bigger lots because he has the heavy equipment, the loaders and whatnot. And so typically we start at the Savage Center. We'll all meet there, and we'll do that building and get it ready for the administration. And then we head out to the Oldham School, and then we go to the Callahan School, and then we go to the Prescott, and we do the Prescott School and then make that rotation again. Some of the buildings when we first come in for our first run of a storm, or if in the middle of the storm, which will be a little bit later I'm sure, if there's been a little while since we've been to a school, we'll put it on a complete V, which closes it right up. We can go right through snowbanks and stuff and proceed around a whole school all the way around the fire lanes with the V like this, and it actually cuts a path right through the snow. Here's a good view of how far you can't see in South Norwood. I think it's about one road. It's crazy, and the wind's really not blowing so hard now. When the wind starts blowing, you can't see the hood of the truck, and that's it. This truck that's right in front of us is one of our guys. That's Bob. And the other trucks over here are the DPW truck, and the other guy with him is one of the contractors, and they're working out on Irving Street and that whole area over there, that neighborhood. This is the big snow bandit. That's the loader that we got from the DPW. We did a little bit of modifications too. We had to do a little bit of repair work. And we bought this, the push bucket. All these piles he's pushed up with that bucket up over the top. We can't reach it with our trucks, but you can see the reach on those arms and the power that the machine has. So you can see how the snow operation works from our end with what schools we do and what schools the contractors do. This has been a great storm for you to see because this is one of the biggest storms that we'll do through the year. I hope this has been informative, been enjoyable. Thanks.
Thanks for letting us ride along with you, Chris. To see the entire interview, tune into the MPA Town channel or video on demand. On Wednesday, a group of Norwood High TV students left for the 2018 Student Television Network Convention that is being held in Nashville, Tennessee. To learn more about what the kids will be working on at this convention, we throw it to Joe Spadorsha and Sam Doucette. Take it away, guys.
Hello, Norwood. I'm Sam Doucette.
And I'm Joe Spadorsha. We're here in Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, here at the SCN Convention.
We're about 1,100 miles away, and yesterday we competed in the Crazy 8s competition, which we have 8 hours to complete a full 8-minute magazine show.
And today we have more individual events, such as the multimedia journalism and the NAT package stories, and even our anchor competition that me and Sam competed in today. So that's all we have, and
back to Norwood.
We'll be right back after this short break to find out what's going on in our local government.
The Norwood Landfill is a composting and recycling facility that is open for the use of Norwood residents only. The facility is open every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. all year long. Composting of leaves, brush, and grass clippings are allowed, loose or in biodegradable leaf paper bags. Excess single-stream recycling items are also allowed to be disposed in the designated dumpsters. The Norwood Winter Street Compost and Recycling Facility is located at 370 Winter Street. For more information, contact the Norwood Department of Public Works or visit www.norwoodma.gov.
Welcome back to Norwood News. On Monday, the Planning Board met and many topics were covered. During the meeting, Paul Halkiotis gives us an update on the Hazardous Mitigation Plan.
Hazardous Mitigation Plan update. Paul, why don't you fill us in? I know we got a grant of some time for this, so why don't you tell us what we're doing and introduce the people and what we're doing.
Thank you. So the town had an approved hazard mitigation plan, and those plans are only valid for a certain amount of time, and then they expire. FEMA requires these plans to be updated and current, and if the town were to apply for certain types of grants that FEMA is involved with, we would have to have an up-to-date approved hazard mitigation plan to apply for one of those grants. So we did apply for a grant to update the plan, and we received that grant, and we contracted with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, our regional planning agency, to serve as our consultant for the plan update. We've been working with Ann Herbst, who's here tonight, representing MAPC, and she's been working with our hazard mitigation planning team, a group of town officials, and we are working on updating the plan. The plan here in Norwood focuses predominantly on looking at areas that are subject to freshwater inland flooding. We're also looking at other types of possible natural disasters that the town should be cognizant of and avoiding and ready to respond in the event of some kind of an emergency.
Due to the weather, Tuesday night's Board of Selectmen and Cable Commission meetings were canceled. The Board of Selectmen will continue their weekly meetings next week. The next Cable Commission meeting will be held on April 10th. At last month's Community Preservation Committee meeting, Jerry Hopcroft from the PBCC stopped in to discuss project status and funding of St. Gabriel's Chapel. CPC had a couple of questions for outside counsel. On Wednesday night, Jerry met CPC again to give an update.
The town planner did approach town council with the question of whether the project at the chapel could be rebid as a new project. Not exactly the words that the town council used, but that was fundamentally the question. Could the current bid or the current bond be canceled and a new project different in scope, not dramatically different in scope, then be rebid as a new project and therefore be eligible for funding through the CPC revenue anticipation bonds? The short answer to that was no. The longer answer I didn't quite understand, but then it really doesn't make a lot of difference whether I understand the long answer. In any event, I subsequently also had a direct meeting with town council and posed the question a little differently, with unfortunately the same outcome. So I'm pretty much convinced at this point that y'all are right, that it will not be possible to change the project. However, it is possible to supplement the current bond to the amount necessary to actually do the project.
Jerry's recommendation in working with the PBCC was to break up the project into 3 parts.
Part 1 is to remove the stained glass windows, restore them, crate them up and store them in town at some location to be determined until the masonry work is done, and then reinstall them in the repaired and restored masonry. That is going to hit the Central Register tomorrow, the Friday, the 16th, and they'll be available the following Wednesday for contractors to pick up. The bids will be coming in on April the 11th, and we will have some review time built in, but no later than May 3rd, we'll have a contract to take care of the windows. We are also separating out the lantern that goes on top of the tower as a separate contract. That is also a very specialized type of work. It's a copper cladding over a steel frame, both of which have been pretty badly mangled when it got knocked over or hit by the peeling back of the roof in a hurricane a couple of years ago. It's currently stored in the basement of the administration building. That will also be restored and stored until the masonry is done. The good news on that one is we can store that one outdoors.
Is that on step one?
That'll be the second of the three pieces.
Okay, so
Piece
step
number
one is
a
windows
windows.
only.
Piece 2 is a lantern only. Piece 3 is everything else.
Okay.
Jerry recommends to hold off and put these articles on the November special town meeting so they have time to gather the bids and correct the information for the town meeting members. The current bids came back $300,000 more than what was proved back in the fall town meeting. The committee decided to wait until the next meeting to gather more information about a potential article on the next town meeting before they proceed. The next meeting will be April 11th at 5:30 p.m. The school committee also met on Wednesday night. There were many topics covered during this 3-hour and 20-minute meeting. Most of the discussion during the night was centered around the budget. Town manager Tony Mizuko gave a presentation to the committee about the town deficit.
We're going financially and some of the challenges we're facing year to year, and then I'll talk a little bit about the 5-year projection that the town accountant did for us and where we're going with that as well. So does Norwood have a budget deficit? And the answer is yes. And this is not just what's impacting us this year, but like most towns in the Commonwealth, we use what's called free cash, which is surplus money from prior years. It's a little bit more complicated than that as to what actually calculates free cash, but for all intents and purposes, surplus money from prior years. We put that money to balance our budget to get us to a revenue number that meets our expense number. Now I know we all pay attention to the federal government and we watch what they do. They're able to just borrow money every year to balance their budget. States and cities and towns and states are not allowed to do that in the United States and in the Commonwealth. We don't simply borrow money to get through every year. So our ability to raise revenues each year is not adequate. And I know on the government side, we always talk about revenues versus expenses, and we'll get into why there's a difference there in a few minutes. But we know that that's not going to work in just about any given year. We could come into a windfall one year, somebody gives us $5 million, somebody gives us $10 million, and that's a good thing. But generally, that doesn't actually end up happening. The two main contributions to whether or not we can meet our revenues every year are the two main drivers of revenue in the town's budget. One is what's called new growth, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The other is called the levy limit. New growth is essentially all the new stuff that's built in the community because we're what's called an ad valorem state. We rely on the property tax to fund local services. The other side of that is the levy limit, which is the state's mandate on what we can raise in property taxes. So solving a problem like this doesn't happen overnight. And by the way, I don't have a solution here, so I hope nobody was expecting me to say, by the way, this is how we do it. It's multifaceted, it takes years. You do have to look at reducing some expenses, but you have to look at other revenue sources, and revenue usually means taxes. I know bureaucrats like me like to use the word revenue, but we generally mean taxes, because there's no one solution on one side or the other that's actually gonna make it happen. And remember, to cut costs, you have to cut costs that grow. Library book cost isn't growing every year. Those are your labor costs. But that's our service, that's what we provide. There's no point in having a teacher in the classroom if there's no book there as well, but you can't have the book and no teacher. So the labor is the service we provide. Book supplies, road materials, equipment, they don't come with an annual cost increase the way that our labor cost does, but our labor is what we're here to do. If we don't have teachers, we don't have a school district. If we don't have police officers, we don't have a police department. Chief Brooks could have 200 of the best equipped police cruisers in the world, and if there's not an officer out there responding to calls, it doesn't matter. A fire engine is useless if you don't have the firefighter to drive it and put out the fire. I would certainly never want somebody to say, Tony, my house is on fire, and if you do have a fire, don't call me, I'm the last person you should call, and say, well, we have an engine, but we don't have anyone to ride the engine in, or we don't have anyone to ride the ambulance. So the challenge is we provide a service to the community, and that service is where that cost comes from.
The last meeting that took place on Wednesday night was the Permanent Building Construction Committee. During this meeting, Town Manager Tony Mizuko sat down with the board to discuss his thoughts on the upcoming Town Hall renovations.
So what we want to work out tonight is your sense of how that should go and what you would like to see accomplished with this first phase, so we're all on the same page.
Sure. So I'm glad we got the laser scanning done. Looking at the project as a whole, one of the conversations Jerry and I had is my main focus is making sure that we get the electrical fixed in this building, instead of just doing some electrical work and then some office remodels. And there's a couple of reasons for that. On the one hand, this has been our town hall since 1928, and for all intents and purposes, it's going to continue to be our town hall. So we can take a long-term approach to the building, but we've got to make sure we're protecting the building. We know we did have an electrical fire, was it 8 years ago? So we know there's still some old wiring in the building and there's still a risk there. Before we get into space planning, and I know I'm glad we got the laser designs done, there's a couple of other things I want to look at first, and one of them is internally we haven't done the greatest job in managing our space. This room's a perfect example of that. We have some dated furniture that takes up a lot of space. We are drowning in paper records. I wish I could say this is the only room that had binders and file cabinets located around it, but just about every other office is drowning in paper. Poor furniture, poor design. There may be some cheaper options than hacking up some rooms to create new office space. Not that the office spaces don't need a refresh in most of the building, it does. But what I want to make sure we have enough funds for is to get the electrical redone in the building as a first step into sort of projecting the building's life for the next 50 plus years. I'm concerned that the amount we have budgeted isn't enough to get all the electrical done. I could be wrong, and it could come in that there's plenty of money. But if I had to choose between making a couple of shared office spaces and renovating some offices, and we might need to do a little work up at the clerk's office, no matter what, and getting the electrical done complete and getting it done right, I'd rather focus on the electrical because we can live with everything else now, whereas the electrical is a little bit more of a concern. I may have different ideas on where we want to move offices around. I intend, through some reallocations over time, to grow the planning department, for instance. They're currently booked for just 2 people, but it's also sort of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole that we just don't have a lot of space. But if anyone's seen my office lately, I don't know if Jerry, if you've been in there in the last few weeks, but just getting a different table and moving the furniture around, there's now room for 6 people to have a meeting at my conference table, and I can sit at my desk with 2 or 3 other people with no problem. Prior to that, just the arrangement of the furniture and the type of furniture that was in there, 5 people was jamming into my office and it was full up with nothing to do. So I want to look at some of those as an alternative before we start reconfiguring physical spaces, because I want to focus on getting the electrical done so we get the building safely protected. And realistically, I mean, a $900,000 project for this building, as you all know, this building could use $10 million worth of work depending on how far we want to go in the process. And I think we need to have that outset that this is not the last work we're going to do on Town Hall. We're going to be doing work every couple of years on Town Hall. It's an old building. It's a beautiful historic building worth doing that work on, but we know we need plumbing upgrades. We know we need the electrical system done. We know the HVAC system is dated, to say the least. The elevator, luckily, is going to get done this year. The elevator hit 30 years. But for a building that's been around for 90 years that we're going to continue to use for 90 years, we can every few years approach what the next phase of the project is, but the electrical is really my concern.
This upcoming Monday, NPE TV will be broadcasting live at 7:30 at the League of Women's Voters Candidate Night. Make sure to tune in to learn more about your local candidates. To watch the full government meetings, tune in to the NPA TV government channel or go to npatv.org. Stay tuned after this break to see what's going on in our schools.
Norwood. Here, we are chosen at birth. Our loyalties are predetermined. And our families, defined. Raised by the stories of those that came before us.
Here's a breakaway. Bill Norman, he's in back, it's goal!
Fearlessly driven by the hope of what's to come. It chooses us. It defines us. And for us, it's everything. This is Norwood. And here, sports are in our blood.
Norwood Mustangs 2015 are the state Division I champs.
Welcome back. It's a busy time of year for the school department. For more information, we're going to toss this over to our Norwood school reporter, Jasmine Santos.
Hi guys, my name is Jasmine Santos, and I'm filling in for Tim Rose, who is in Nashville attending the Student Television Network Conference. Thanks for joining me for another update on events and activities happening around our Norwood school community. Norwood High held their traditional Style on the Hill this week. This event is a student council fundraiser, and the first half of the night is a fashion show where 20 senior boys and 20 senior girls model prom outfits. The outfits are courtesy of Richard Lewis Formal and David's Bridal. It is a great way to get a sneak peek of this year's prom styles. After intermission, 10 boys will continue to compete in Mr. Man on the Hill. There is a trivia round, skills round, and talent round. At the end of the night, Ryan Granzinski was chosen as the 2018 Man on the Hill. He won over everyone with his amazing art talents. Tune in to NPA to watch the entire evening. At the Prescott School, first graders in Ms. Boulet's class worked on nonfiction writing during the month of February. Students choose an animal that interested them. They started by taking notes from their informational text and online sources. Students then wrote rough drafts and then met with their teacher for edits and revisions. Students then wrote a final draft which included 5 parts on the animal: appearance, habitat, diet, family, and interesting facts. Students also created a cover page, table of contents, and an About the Author page. All in all, this project took 2 weeks to complete. After being bound into a book, students presented their writing for other classes. It was a great success. Students at the Prescott School raised over $2,000 for the American Heart Association by participating in the Jump Rope for Heart program. During gym time, Mrs. Schwerer taught the students jump rope and basketball skills they can use for the rest of their lives. The students also got tips on heart-healthy habits. Pictured are Ms. Schwerer and the top fundraisers Sammy and Shay Morard and John Perella. The Little Mustangs Preschool Academy held their first Leprechaun Lollapalooza. Irish Sugar extraordinaire Miss Michelle led the students and teachers in some Irish dance steps and also performed one of her gold-winning performances. Miss Michelle's mom also came in to show the children how to play a traditional Irish drum called a bodhrán. They wrapped up their Lollapalooza with a sing-along, learning some new songs about leprechauns. All the students and staff enjoyed learning about some Irish traditions in such a fun way. It is March, so the days are getting longer. Temperatures are getting warmer, which means tree sap is flowing, and it is time to tap the maple trees. Sean Moriarty of Moose Hill in Walpole visited the Willett School and explained to the students why springtime is sugaring time. The warmer days cause the tree sap to travel up the tree trunks and into its branches, giving the tree energy to start another growth cycle. When the temperature drops at night, the syrup travels back down the branches and returns to the trunk. Once the bucket is almost full, you collect the sap and start the boiling process. It takes 40 gallons of sap to get just 1 gallon of syrup. After you boil your sap for 4 to 6 hours, you'll have the beautiful amber-colored syrup to enjoy with your favorite stack of pancakes. Thank you, Moose Hill, for coming to the Willett, and thank you, Willett PTO, for providing another great enrichment program. The Callahan 5th graders are also learning about maple syrup by traveling to Moose Hill. This educational program highlighted colonial times as well as how maple syrup is made. Volunteers explained to the Callahan 5th grade students that there are 120 maple trees on the Moose Hill property. The event included a 90-minute guided tour along a wooded trail with stops to illustrate how maple syrup is made from tree to sugary shack and bits of its history. Also, at the Callahan School, 4th and 1st grade students enjoy book buddies. They spend time getting to know each other and helping with various reading tasks. It is the highlight of the week for many students and staff, and it promotes a strong sense of community. Callahan students earn dojo points for positive behavior. Each time they earn 25 dojo points, they receive a certificate. Here are some proud 1st grade students who are sharing their dojo certificates with Miss Brown. Congratulations, guys. Well, that's it for school news. For more information on the district, please check the website, Facebook, and watch NPA TV. As always, thanks so much for your continued support of our school community. Let's go to Mike Maloof with the latest sports news.
Thanks, Jasmine. I'm Mike Maloof from this year's Sports Update. The winter sports season has finally come to an end up here at Norwood High School, and that means the spring season is right around the corner. Starting Monday and all of next week will be tryouts for the spring sports season. We'd like to wish Kristen McDonald, our host, and the Braintree girls basketball coach good luck in the championship game this weekend. Her Braintree Womps will be competing against Springfield Central for the D1 Girls State Championship. Earlier this week on Sports Extra, Mark Hoover caught up with Norwood's own NHL star, Noah Hannafin. Let's take a look at that interview.
You know, Noah, you've just had an absolutely amazing hockey career up to this point. I know you played, for a little bit there with the Norwood Nuggets, and you did the Learn to Skate over at Ponkapog. What kind of memories do you have of the Norwood Nugget hockey program?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's where it all kind of started for me, And I remember when I was probably 5 years old, I started playing instructional hockey over at the pond, and Rod Lampron was my first coach. I was a mite, and I kind of made a lot of relationships through hockey, and I was young there. And a lot of my favorite memories from hockey began when I was playing for Norwood when I was a kid. So, those are great experiences, and it feels like it was just yesterday.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing, again, to kind of watch you play. Actually, I kind of have a slight connection to you when you were just a little kid. I first met you when you were playing the instructional soccer down on those lower fields, and even back then I said, "Boy, this kid's a pretty good little athlete." And so in 8th grade you head over to St. Seb's and start for the varsity over there, which is an amazing accomplishment just to begin with. Noah, when did you think you kind of had you realize that maybe you'd be taking your game to the hockey game to the next level?
Yeah, I would probably say, that year, in the 8th grade, that was kind of like the first real challenge I ever had playing hockey. I was playing against kids who were a lot older than me, and I was playing against some pretty good players, and, I found a way to continue to get better and perform. And I think at that age, I talked to my dad, my mom, and we were all kind of like, all right, like this is something I want to pursue, and, I love this sport, and I think I definitely could potentially have a future in it. So I would say around then, and just built from there. And obviously, I went to the U.S. national program a few years later, and it kind of all fell into place. But I would say, around that 8th grade year is when it started.
Yeah, again, it's kind of interesting, and we get a chance to see you at least a couple times when you play the Spoke Bees. But what was it like that first time? I mean, now you have worked again since you were just a little kid, and you're still, You're still a little kid, you're still quite young, but what was that first time stepping onto that NHL surface for your first regular season game? What was that like?
Yeah, there was a lot of goosebumps, a lot of nerves. It was an incredible feeling. It was in Nashville. My first game was in Nashville, which is a great rink to play in. It's really loud, and it's a great atmosphere, and, my family got to come down and watch it, and yeah, I think it's something I'll never forget. Just being out there, and this is something you literally dreamt about since you've been a little kid, and you've always visualized it happening. And then once you're really out there and you're watching it all take place, it kind of feels somewhat surreal. It's a weird feeling, but something I'll never forget. And it's it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of years, trying to get ready for that moment and playing in the NHL. And when it was there, it was great. So. But like I said, it's harder to stay here than it is to get there. So you got to always keep working hard and getting better.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure to watch you play. I think back just real quick to your shootout winner a couple years ago against the Bruins at the Garden. That had to be just not only be playing there in Boston against the Bruins, which I'm sure as a Massachusetts guy you grow up idolizing, but then to win it in a shootout had to be something else. Noah Hannafin, really appreciate coming down and speaking with us tonight. Congratulations on everything thus far. It's just a real pleasure to follow your career, and best of luck as you guys head towards the postseason.
No, I appreciate that so much, and thank you. It's always great talking to you guys. So. We'll be in touch.
All right, yeah. Swing by this summer. We'll talk to you this summer.
For sure.
All right, take care, Noah.
Guys. All right, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Noah Hannafin from the Carolina Hurricanes joining us tonight.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you, Noah, for coming on the show. That's all I have for sports, and back to Kristen at the desk.
Thanks, Mike. The weather caused a lot of delays in Norwood this week. One of the events that was pushed back was the Norwood Senior Center St. Patrick's Day Luncheon. Norwood Senior Center will now be hosting their annual St. Patrick's Day Luncheon on Tuesday, March 20th at noon. Seniors from all over the area will travel to the Senior Center for corned beef and cabbage and entertainment by the Black Velvet Band. The Norwood Board of Selectmen, Tony Mazzucco, Bernie Cooper, Representative John Rogers, and Senator Mike Rush will all be in attendance. This will be a great event that you will not want to miss. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Norwood News. I am your host, Krista McDonald. To stay up to date with MPA TV, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We leave you with a picture of Ava and Jackson D taken by their mother, Amy Zagarella. Have a great weekend.